audience probably by definition at that stage was going to be 18 up anyway. So it wasn't, the R in fact wasn't a restriction or an inhibition. In fact, the R was in fact a positive, because you were in fact promising people that they were going to be a part of an experience that was pretty tough and rough. The main selling tool of that film was the film itself. And that's why whatever one put into the poster or the press ads or whatever, the impact of the film was 20 times more. And that, of course, meant that it utilised the strongest and the most powerful selling tool in the world, called word of mouth. Everyone associated with the film was just blown away by the response of the film goers. You had people either passionately embracing it and celebrating its daring, or you had other people, and I remember there was one reporter for the ABC who was physically ill at the end of the film.
Someone did a radio film review of it. Was saying how awful it was, and all this violence. There wasn't much violence at all. It was implied violence. That's fine, but that's a whole different thing. But that's what film's all about. That's to get your imagination working, what have you.
It's actually not a violent film. It's a very mature film about violence.
Film has a violent sort of feel, a violent mise-en-scène. And this is, I think, is brought about by its sort of mechanical nature. There's lots of noise and lots of cars hitting and banging and motorbikes sort of crashing and so on. And that sort of tends to give a viewer the impression that the film is sort of violent. They come out thinking, gee, it's a violent film, when it really isn't.
There were a lot of people that objected to the type of violence that were in it and tried to run that film down. There's a lot of the Australian industry did at that time, because it was considered not the kind of film that Australia should be making or that we wanted to be associated with. My thing was, well, what the fuck are you talking about? It was, wow.
Only a review I ever kept was from India, which said, was a little review that said the people who made this film should be dragged out into the street and hung. And I've got that somewhere, because it's the most negative review I've ever had. When it got to the United States, it was released by AIP Pictures, an old classic cigar-chomping mogul called Samuel Ziarkov, who ran American International Pictures.
Sam was very excited about the movie. He loved the movie. He got it like we got it. And he paid a big sum of money to buy the film. In the period between him buying the film and the release, he sold the controlling stake in his company to a group called Filmways, and they called the shots on the release, and Sam was pushed to the sidelines and very unhappy about that.
And, you know, at that point, we really had no control. The film had been sold to the American company. We had no control over it. So they dubbed it.
Sure. There's a shop just down the beach. They'll appreciate the business.
On the version that's in the United States and all other English-speaking territories outside of Australia and New Zealand, we're hearing these dubbed voices.
Keep out of this. What's going on? No one shoot, okay? But get it, Charlie. Just let him go. Get it, Charlie. Just let him go. No one shoot. No. What's he mean, no one show?
So Mel, who's an American, is dubbed by another American in that version of Mad Max. The worst part of it, and it still makes me cringe to think of it, is that Keays-Byrne, out of the Royal Shakespeare Company, out of his mouth comes a badly dubbed American accent.
Jesse, Jesse, you've not got a sense of humor. You've got a pretty face, though. Awful pretty.
I've never seen that version of the movie. I don't think I would ever see the dubbed version of the movie. It would be way too painful. But that's how the rest of the world saw it, unless it was in a foreign language. That's how they saw it, and it was just such a sad thing to have happened.